My self-imposed limiting beliefs are that whatever I have to share, it's already been shared in a book or somewhere along the way. My friends keep saying, but it's not shared in your voice. So here we are, a podcast in my voice. The diss. What's the diss about? It's about disruption. So I consider myself the relationship disruptor. What I mean by that is, if you think about, there's a lot of conventional thoughts around relationships, and it's not working for a lot of people. To get a better relationship with your current partner, your future partner, or even your unforeseen partner, or with your own damn self, right? How can we disrupt your current thoughts around relationships and self to get to better outcomes? And I would call them even mutually beneficial, better outcomes for you and whoever else is in that relationship with you. Getting caught up in your feelings, and I'm not saying that feelings are a bad thing. On Myers-Briggs, I'm not a big feeling person. We'll talk about that another day. But I'm not saying that feelings are a bad thing, but people get caught up in their head, in the stories in their head, right? I like to talk about the script writers in my head, and they're oftentimes writing stories that are so good that they could be Oscar award-winning script writers. We all have script writers in our head telling us stories that are not necessarily what the reality is. Our reality, our perception becomes our reality. I'll say it like that. But we're not conscious of that. It's our perception and not necessarily the reality. So a lot of people don't talk. Now, people talk about, communicate. It's a key thing to a relationship. The problem is we don't know how to have the conversations in a productive way. So some of the things that we'll talk about at the DIS, we'll talk about how to have more productive conversations, again, with self and with others, so that you could get to better outcomes and disrupt the current pathways that you're on. The Christmas story. Yes. This is why we're here today. First episode, the Christmas story, right? So think about it like this. Now, let me give you a little bit of background about myself, and that'll probably help out to give some context to the story. I am what many consider to be an outlier. What does that mean? 24 years ago, I adopted a plant-based, I committed to a plant-based vegan diet. No alcohol, no religion. So drop religion. Traded in my fade for my locks, right? They're now flowing down halfway down my back. All of that, a guy that also shows up in corporate America, speaking to from the frontline person to the CEOs and presidents of organizations in corporate America. So that, for a lot of women, seems to be either intriguing and in the best case scenario, or scary as hell in the worst case scenario. So the Christmas story kind of follows that whole spectrum. So here's the setting. Meet a sister, lovely young lady. A little bit before the Christmas holiday, and having a conversation about, I'm looking at her, she's looking at me. We both looking at each other thinking, oh, this motherfucker right here is fine. You know the look, right? Googly eyes going all up and down the joint. So we're getting into each other, having the conversation, and asking the 20 questions, and in the 20 questions it comes out, like I'm real clear, it comes out that, hey, I don't do organized religion, because somewhere in the conversation she probably shared about her religion. Matter of fact, it shows up like this. I can't stay up too late, I gotta go to church in the morning. Oh, okay, how you feel about dating a brother who does not go to church? Matter of fact, dating a brother who doesn't need to go to church, but dating a brother who does not do religion, organized religion. Oh, I'm fine with that. Okay, now this is not my first rodeo, right? Been here before, been here, done this. So I'm making it clear again, make it plain that when I say I don't do religion, I'm not saying I don't do Christianity, I'm saying I don't do religion. So I don't show up at church, I don't do most holidays, and I especially don't do Christmas, right? No, it's good, as long as you don't get in my way of doing my thing, I'm good. I said, no, do your thing, let me do my thing, we're good. Right. So weeks roll by, relationship is getting good, we're feeling good about the relationship, Dr. Feel Good all over the joint, having a good time and all that stuff, late nights, good conversation, you remember the days, right? Remember the days. And as Christmas rolls up, the reminder, remember, I don't do Christmas. Yeah, no, I'm good. Christmas Day. Yeah, it kind of hit me today that you would never be in church with me? Nope. Thought I said that. I'd never get a Christmas present? Ain't happening, right?
Yeah, other presents, but not
other presents. Right. Birthday, we good. Right. Any day, how, whatever, surprise, we good. Saw something when I was in the store, when I was walking to the airport. Thought of you, reminded me of you. Heard you say something that you wanted. Got it.
Right.
Christmas ain't happening. So, I'm not sure if I can do this. Okay, well, you gotta let me know. So now, because we got that week between Christmas and New Year's. So now, the few weeks of, pie in the sky, all is good, now it's going south, right? Feelings are kind of different, whatever have you. And now we're rolling up on watch night. I think that's what they call it, watch night. I don't know. Right? So I think they call it watch night, New Year's Eve watch night. And that's when it really hits, right? It's like, oh, yeah, I don't know if I can do this. Okay. All right. So, in the words of Slick Rick, that's the way I have to end the story, right? Because the point here is the conversations that we have must be authentically communicated and authentically heard. I think that's the key. As much as I've learned to authentically communicate my perspectives and where I am, and I've checked in, right? Because again, this, like I said, it's not my first rodeo. Some sisters are probably out there thinking, oh, he's talking about me. I'm not talking about anyone in particular. I'm talking about a number of situations that have sounded very similar, right? And so, since they're similar, as I always check myself, right? What's the common denominator? Me in this situation. So I've checked myself to make sure that I'm having the conversations authentically, that I'm clearly communicating. This is what I do, and this is what I don't do, right? And I've even checked in with my female friends. And they've said, D, you clear, right? You clear from day one. So, okay, cool. Clear and consistent, I would call it, right? Now, but somewhere in the process.
Exactly.
And I think it's it's that people are hearing what they want to hear. So a sister who practices Christianity, when she hears someone says, oh, I don't do religion, oftentimes I've learned they're hearing, I don't do your denomination of Christianity. Let me be real clear. I don't do Christianity, I don't do Islam, I don't do religion. Now, am I a spiritual person? Absolutely. Right. But I don't do organized religion. Lessons from the Christmas story. This really gets down to this whole I didn't know it was going to be like this moment when you find yourself in a situation where that other person had differing, I'll call them different core beliefs, right? How do you handle that situation that, I didn't know it was going to be like this? Because we all have been there. I didn't know it was going to be like this. So, a few of my takeaways here. Be your authentic self. And with that, we got to have authentic conversations as well. Now, this is on both parts, right? This is all sides of the equation. You got to come in as your true self. And I get it. I understand that we are going to send our agents. That's what we do, especially in the first 6 months. If you don't know what I mean by sending your agent, you haven't woke up. You ain't woke yet, right?
They need to stick around.
Right. You got that.
Tell me the 3 points.
So our 3 points take away from the Christmas story. Be your authentic self and commit to having authentic conversations. And what does that mean kind of in the core of it all? We have to spend some time understanding and being authentic selves, understanding what our non-negotiables are. Now, what we tend to do is we tend to have a whole long list of what I think I need in a relationship to make it work. And as I say, the longer that list is, the longer you're gonna be by your damn self, right? Because nobody can meet that long list. So you gotta pare that long list down to what I call the non-negotiables, the true non-negotiables of a productive relationship. And here's the thing, here's the secret. As you pare that list down, guess what happens? Your mate shows up. Or there's a higher probability that your mate shows up. Long list, by your damn self. It's called the choice of being single. Shorten that list, your mate just might show up, because now you're not holding people to so many of your preferences, but most of us haven't brought that to consciousness of what our non-negotiables are. So in the Christmas story, if your non-negotiable is you must have a mate who is Christian, and you meet a mate who is not Christian, you stop the conversation. All that extra stuff is feeling good, fine and dandy, but you've got to say, wait a minute, this is my non-negotiable, right? For me, as an example, I don't have a non-negotiable of you have to be vegan. Right? I've dated vegan, I've dated non-vegans. I will have a strong preference. It makes it easier to be vegan, but but it's not a requirement for me to have my mate as a vegan, right? Now, what my requirements are, you have to commit to when we have issues and challenges, you stay in it and we work it out. We have conversations about it. Those are some of my non-negotiables. So back to one of my Christmas stories, I tried to have the conversation of the difference, to get an understanding that, we have differing spiritual beliefs. If you're up for understanding this difference to a point where we get to acceptance and appreciation, which is another point from the Christmas story, understanding is cool, understanding is great. I talk of the value of understanding differences. At some point, if you want that relationship to really manifest to its trueness, you've got to get to an acceptance and appreciation of that differing perspective, that differing belief, that differing value system, right? And so when we could get to that, so to have a conversation, my non-negotiables, we need to have a conversation of this difference. But some situations, a person is on shutdown. I don't want to hear anything, and I get it. When I was in the Christian church, I understood. You anything other than Christianity was not accepted. Okay, so if that's your thing, you're no longer meeting my requirement. Because I got to be able to have a conversation about differences with you. That's one of my requirements. So we've got authentic self and authentic conversations. Understanding is a good start, but you got to move to acceptance and appreciation of the difference. And then a third one is ask the person, what does that difference really look like behaviorally, right? Because I could have it in my head of what I think you're talking about in this difference and different belief or whatever have you, but how does that show up? How does that manifest behaviorally? Our beliefs, people don't see our beliefs. They see the behaviors that leak out from our beliefs. So I don't know, back to the Christmas story, sister didn't know until on Christmas Day when I didn't show up at church, or when we're approaching New Year's, and another back years ago story was, and this is a friend of mine that we were friends to relationship, wonderful relationship, great history with together. We were diverging in our spiritual belief patterns, and so back then on New Year's Eve, I would meditate to bring in the new year and then go party, right? My good friend, we're still good friends to this day, but at this point we're dating. She's heading out the door to go to mass at midnight. It's 11:45. We're at an impasse. I'm looking at her like, you really gonna leave? She really looking at me like, you really not gonna come?
Right.
Right? And so she leaves, I stay, I meditate, she goes, she does her thing. We come back, 12:30, and we go out to the party. We both have to now make a decision. Are we going to be okay with this moving forward? Right? Now, as it would turn out, we decide, yeah, I think we're good, because we had that history. Later that year, for other reasons, it didn't work out. But as it turns out, years and years later, that divergence of spiritual beliefs really manifested in terms of how we started to live our lives. And as it turns out, it probably wasn't going to work out.
Right.
And so I think, that Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, that New Year's Eve was an indication, kind of a hint of, this one's not going to work. And we got to pay attention to those hints. We're going to talk about authentic self, authentic conversation. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about how to really move from understanding to acceptance and appreciation of differences. even when, we might have some different core values around that. Because again, in a quality relationship, you could have different core values. Dr. Gottman talks about it in his book, Seven Principles for Making Marriage Work. He talks about the problems that manifest all of the time in relationships are problems that have a difference in values, and understanding each other in those different values becomes the key to overcoming the challenges associated with it. We're gonna have perpetual problems in any relationship.
Right.
And that's not to say, again, that means you have to run. It may be a message of you have to work. You've just got to make a decision and figure out, again, through more authentic conversations, is this a time to run or time to work?
Right.
So oftentimes talk about in my coaching is judging creates distance, understanding creates connection. So when you get that first ping or that second ping, that's your pause to understand, suspend the judgment and understand and have a conversation to fully understand each other. And then you start making your decisions from there. Most of us are not paying attention to that note, because Dr. Feelgood is overriding.
Well,
Yeah. So my consulting work is about making workplace tension productive. And that's about relationships at the workplace. I'm simply taking many other tips and tools that we talk about in making workplace tension productive to making personal relationships productive. And so it's all hand in hand with the 20 plus years of work that I've been doing in the diversity and inclusion space. All right, so y'all heard my voice, and I know y'all got your own voice out there. Y'all over there getting fired up, getting heated. Go ahead and drop your heat in the comments below. Like the conversation, so hit the like button as well. And subscribe and tell your girls, tell your boys to jump into the conversation.